Patterns convey energy and feelings. And this one's going to push me because you guys have known me now for a week, right? Bo's going to talk about feelings. Yes, I am. So I might not portray feelings as so much, but I definitely believe in them, and I believe what they can make people do. So I believe that patterns do impart feelings for us liking, disliking, interacting, or pulling back from things. So if we can start to appreciate how patterns make people feel, we can utilize those patterns within our designs to elicit particular feelings. So if you want to have a harmonious design, or you want to have a sanctuary, or you want to have people have an active mood, these are different ways that they can interact with patterns. So one pattern that we know through music or harmonics is love or fear. So depending on the hertz of things. So fear is described as a long, slow wavelength, activates very few of our DNA, so we don't tend to respond to this type of wavelength very much. But some people would say that it connects us to the cosmos, so this is the underlining pattern of the cosmos. Love, short and fast wavelengths, and it activates more, so when they study, people are like, their DNA activates, and it reconnects us with all that is. So again, you can have rhythms, so the different rhythms, speeds that you interact within your design. Patterns that can play with that type of thing. This is described as interconnectedness. So fractals, people that like this fractal patterns tend to be very interconnected patterns, and they give you this feeling of interconnectedness. So if you like that, you can integrate like spiral or fractal spiral patterns within your gardens. So different designs of a garden, for instance, that we may interact with will elicit different feelings based on the pattern. Exponential patterns, things that draw up. So for instance, the Catarina pines from Australia, Casuarina that are there, they have this pointy effect, which is out of place here in Thailand. So Thai people really like that particular tree because most of the trees don't do that. And when you see that, you have this upward projection, which is like the feeling of exponential or height of drawing me up. So we can utilize those patterns to make people react or feel in certain ways. Harmony, if we make things very symmetrical, as I described with you guys on the natural building course, the idea of squaring the circle or making the roundhouse very symmetrical inside so that it would be a harmonious feeling within the circle, okay? So this is a thing that we can see with a peacock being very symmetrical, okay, in its relationship, so that we can also design again. Here's a fractal pattern. So a Mandela-ish pattern utilizing fractals and being symmetrical. Okay, so that would be more harmonious. Resonance, if we have motion, so different patterns can convey motion or a spinning. So these type of sand patterns that we see conveys, though we don't see the energy, we understand the energy that caused the motion. So if we were to lay out those type of patterns, right, it conveys energy and motion, which is known as resonance or vibrations. Love, if you do your Indian yoga, then the ashrams like to put their name of the ashram in front of a picture of a mountain range like this. Most of the time it's not where they're from because they believe that that particular picture of the undulating mountains portrays the word love. So they'll put the name of their ashram in front of that. So you sometimes even get like a business card, and their business card has a picture on it with the name in front of the picture. Because when it gives it to you, you get the projection of love through the picture to associate with their name. So hippie art has a lot of that type of undulation. So I had to put it in. Mathematics and patterns, I couldn't do without it. You know, I know you guys want to learn some math, right? Okay. Mathematicians don't know all the answers, unlike in class. Mathematics is a science which looks for patterns and structure, okay? So when we measure something and we're doing math, it's only measuring nature. What could you measure that's not natural? So we're measuring or trying to portray nature's pattern. Mathematics is a language for studying and understanding nature's patterns, nothing more than that. So whether I measure this and I say this is 12 inches, it's just a representation of us trying to use language to convey the dimensions of something that's natural. So we can see that in nature a lot, which is math and the busy bunnies. So if we have a pair of bunnies, and they mate. So a newly born male pair starts. So we have 2 baby bunnies. They're 1 day old. After 1 month old, 30 days, they can breed. They can mate. 30 days later, after mating, so the female is now 60 days old, she has offspring. And so on and so forth for as much as they're allowed to do. So 1 pair makes 1 pair, makes 2 pairs, makes 3 pairs, makes 5 pairs, and so on and so forth indefinitely. Okay? Now that works with busy bunnies, but it works with almost everything else we find in nature also. So that pattern is the pattern of nature. Okay? So we can almost measure everything and replicate that pattern. It's called the golden mean. It's the actual pattern of a spiral. So we can overlay the pattern. So that was a ratio. So what we were looking at was the ratio, but the pattern is the spiral. So spirals are almost overlaid on everything, even the growth. Our growth grows within that pattern. When we measure ourselves, remember, what was he measuring? He's measuring the golden mean for people. So that's called the Fibonacci sequence, that sequence of numbers. And it's not very difficult to find out, and it doesn't really matter if we know how to find it out or if we even know how to use it. That's also not necessarily important. It's understanding that actually math is just measuring the growth of nature. So in this instance, here's the flowers. So Fibonacci actually measured flowers in his backyard. And he went to every different flower and he started to measure how they grew. And he said, well, this flower grows at this rate. And then he went to this flower and it grew at this rate. And they all grew at the exact same rate. So then he started measuring like trees. And he said, well, they all grow at the same rate. And why does everything grow at the same rate? Started measuring, wow, everything's moving at this same rate, which is a Fibonacci sequence. So how does he do that? Well, Fibonacci was a ladies' man, as we can see in the picture. He was the greatest European mathematician of the Middle Ages, maybe all time. He was born in Pisa, Italy, where they have the Leaning Tower. His major contributions to our world that we live in today was arithmetic, algebra, and number theory. Okay. He also did the decimal system, which is pretty important. So, you know, like algebra and the decimal system is kind of like the basis of what most people use. So he came up with the Fibonacci sequence, which is a rule for the sequence 1, 1, 2, 3, whatever. The answer 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 24, and you can memorize that if you want to, but it's not very difficult. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. 3 plus 5 is 8. That's so forth, right? That's it. That's what he came up with. But he only figured that out from measuring the flowers. He didn't come up with it backwards. So he looked at nature to figure out the sequence, okay? These were the flowers that he had in his yard that he measured, okay? They're all really weird, and but they all grow at the same rate. So the golden ratio in nature, pretty nice now with technology. People can put it into a caliper. You can order one of these, okay? You can put this over, because remember I told you about scale before, how we look isn't relative to what we see. So if I put the scale, I can move it up and down, so the caliper moves at the sequence. Okay, it moves at the ratio. So here we set the caliper, we move down, and we put it on that branch, and we see, oh wow, the branch grew, and the spacing of the leaves was at this Fibonacci sequence. We come back 2 weeks later, the branch has grown in length, but the spacing was the same. You adjust the calipers. If we measure peacock feathers as they're growing, guess what? They grow at the same ratio. If we measure a moth's wing as it grows through its life cycle, it's growing at the same ratio. We also can do that in art and architecture, where it might come appropriate to understand things like this. If you want to be a designer and you want to design a plan, you want to design pathways, buildings, and interactions with people, that your pathways, buildings, and interactions may come close to the Fibonacci sequence, because the further away from the Fibonacci sequence they are, the uglier it will be. Because guess what this sequence is? Beauty. Our interpretation of beauty is based on how accurate something is to the Fibonacci sequence, because when things get out of the sequence, too far out, well, we might even call those people like birth defects, right? Too far out. They're not within the sequence. Something's not right. Okay? Great Wall, the Parthenon. It's almost perfect. You think when the guy designed that he got it close because he knew about it, or he just happened to get it close? Mona Lisa? Perfect. Did he know before he drew it? Or because he's an artist, he draws and can meet the sequence? This is the question. So, enough for that. I would just say that you try to think about it, right? So that we can look at it. We'll come back to that in a second. So spirals, a pine cone, clockwise and anti-clockwise. So we look at a pine cone and we see the spirals in a pine cone. We go over to the other side, they spiral in opposite directions at the same time, or interlocked vortex streets. Okay, three-dimensional spirals in two directions. But why would a pine cone want to do that? Well, we can look at the golden mean to try to figure out why pine cones, right, are in spirals. And what would it gain by making a spiral? So it must do it for a reason, and that's where we're moving towards. Why do things do these things? And then how do we use them in our design? So the way to get your golden ratio for your design, very simply, choose any number, say X on your design, the height of this table. Measure it. Let's assume it's 1 meter, okay? X plus 1, find 1 over X. Do the above steps over and over again, and you'll get the golden mean as related to the height of this table. Why would I want to do that? Well then, let's say I wanted this table to be in relationship to something else, for instance. Yeah? I could find out that particular spatial relationship, and that would make it balanced. What if I was to tell you that the height of that window is the golden ratio to the height of the ceiling? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to figure out the height of your window as related to the height of your ceiling to make sure that it grew proportional to nature? See, we see nature all around us, and that conditions us to what's beauty. So when we can get things that we make within the proportions of natural growth, they look better. So why did they do that? Pine cones want to do that because it helps in efficient packing of seeds. But flowers and pine cones have to deal with growth. So they use the Fibonacci sequence to pack something very small, and over time it grows outwardly in the same ratio. The ratio is growth of nature. So this is a microscopic picture of a seed head of a sunflower. And then we can see over time as it grows, it pushes the seeds out as they grow into the spiral, spiraling in two different interlocked things, and that's how they do it. And you finally end up with that really nice sunflower. Started with that microscopic point and grew into that pattern. Cool. Enough for math though. Let's look at patterns, pattern application and edge. So how do we start to take all of that, which is pretty high level, call it theory, maybe some strategy, very little application. We didn't see a lot of it being applied. Little hints I put in pictures, right? Now let's see what we can say. Let's take it and try to apply patterns. I'm going to take a break there.